My name is Doug Kiley. I'm from Baldwin General Contracting. Thanks for having me in today. The first question that I was told you're going to be interested in is, does Baldwin General Contracting provide a product or a service? And I'm not going to answer that in the beginning. We'll get to the end and see what you think. So first thing, what does a general contractor do? We are the single point of contact from an owner, so the person who wants a building to be built, and the rest of the trades that will be required to produce that building. The owner doesn't have the knowledge or expertise in who to contact, what questions to ask, and what they need. So that's why they come to us. And we provide that single point of any questions they have for the owner wise, any problems, they just have one place to go. If they didn't have us, they would be talking to their plumber, who would then say, it wasn't my fault, it was the electrician's fault, who would say, it wasn't my fault, it was the framer's fault, and then go back to the plumber. You just go round and round. So this gives the owner just an easy way to get their building erected. All right, so from a high school point of view or from an entry level, what type of jobs do we have? And the two in the orange color are where an entry level position would be. The white box is what would traditionally be a very strict definition of what a general contractor is responsible for and what jobs they would have. Most general contractors take advantage of the work that they have been assigned and will perform some of that work themselves rather than trying to find another contractor to do it. It keeps more control in-house, keeps more of our schedule, and it reduces costs. So for Baldwin General Contracting, we have a carpentry crew and we have a concrete crew. Here I've just outlined carpentry. Is the same for concrete, same job titles. So for us, the entry level positions would be if you wanted to build things with your hands and you want to see buildings go up and you want to be on the job site involved in that kind of work, then you would start off as what we call a laborer. And this is somebody who doesn't have any particular knowledge of carpentry or concrete. They're there to help the more experienced people keep them working. So when materials are needed, or just help in holding the end of a long beam, all the little stuff that needs to be done to keep the project moving forward at a faster pace. So you'd come in there. Requirements for getting hired in that position. You have to have some drive and some dedication. You have to want to do this job. You have to be excited about building. If you're just looking to fill 40 hours during a week, it's not going to work out really well because the rest of the crew is motivated to get their job done. And they want to work with people who are as motivated as they are. You need to show up for work every day. You need to be on time. 7 o'clock is our typical starting time. That means you should be there about 10 minutes to 7 so that you can get your hard hat on, get your vest on, if you have a tool belt, if you have a water bottle, if it's a hot day or not. So you can get ready. If you have boots, that you wear boots for the job site that are different than what you just wear in your car. You know, that's not a requirement, but if you're going to switch boots, you get all ready so that at 7 o'clock, you are standing next to the building and everybody's together and they can go over the plan for the day and get started. Having somebody in the parking lot who just got out of their car and you got to wait for them to walk over here, it just takes time away. And so you have to be on time. And
yeah, it worked today.
Yeah. And you have to do your best every day. That doesn't, we're not expecting, this isn't a great level of experience you have to have. You just have to try your best. And you have to learn. So number one thing I remember back to high school was we had some people who said, I'm just so sick of this class. I'm going to get out of the classroom and go to work, and that's fine. You don't want to read a book. You don't want to take tests, but you do have to continue to learn. You have to watch the guys who are more experienced. And as time goes on, you will win their trust. And when there's an opening, you move up to the next one, which is an apprentice. You'll be given, you've shown that you can learn, and you've learned some skills by watching and maybe doing a few things eventually you've gained some experience. When we get busy with an extra job, we need to hire more laborers, you'll move up and you'll have somebody else helping you holding the boards. Next step from an apprentice is a journeyman. That's sort of the more senior level, somebody who really knows what they're doing. They can be trusted just to be told the shorthand version of what to do. They have some apprentices under them, and they have some laborers with them as well. So you're starting to build a little group that you're in charge of. So that's the progress up that chain. The other place you could start as entry level is in the office as a project administrator. The requirements for that job are the very same as for the laborer. We're not expecting that you know what we need you to do, but that you are here to do the work. Is what you're interested in. Show up on time every day, do your best, and always keep learning. You know, if we have to explain the same thing every day, that's not going to work out very well. The project administrator, roughly, is an accounting position of sorts. In tracking receipts that come in, assigning it to the right job. And there's codes within jobs, so we break down what did it cost us to pour the concrete versus what did it cost us to put the walls up, or paint, or roof, or insulate doors, windows. Everything has its own cost code. So the project administrator is looking at the bills as they come in, determining which project they're for, which phase they're for, and coding it. It's kind of the secretarial work for the project. The advancement path for a project administrator, which we call a PA, is a project engineer, which we call a PE. The project engineer has the higher level of responsibility for all the costs and some interactions with the job. There's always alterations on jobs, things that weren't realized, like if you're doing a remodel and you give a price for what it's going to cost to take this building from its existing state to what they want. You have all the costs figured out. You start into the project and the wall comes down and there's asbestos wrapped pipes behind there. Nobody knew they were there. Nobody told us. The owner didn't know. It's nobody's fault. But now there needs to be some asbestos removed from that site. So the project engineer would be the person who would document that, go get a price for the removal, write it up on there's a standard form for it, send it to the owner of the building and say, here's the costs and here's the breakdown of how who's getting paid for what. They look at it and make sure it's reasonable, and then they sign it and it comes back to the project engineer. So the project engineer has a lot of detail work, some more like contract specific type work, whereas a project administrator is doing just some standard job costing and taking care of the paperwork that the project engineer would direct them to do. From a project engineer, you could move up to a project manager. Project manager is in charge of the schedule, make sure things stay on schedule and the building finishes by the date. You know, if you're building a school, they expect it to be open for the school year, so you can't open it in October. But it takes maybe 2 years to build that school. So very, very timeline sensitive, and the project manager is ultimately responsible for the costs that are being incurred. They write the contracts for the plumber, and they make sure that the project engineer has tracked that the amount that the plumber was contracted to be paid is the amount that they submitted invoices for, and it all balances out. Another possible entry point, project administrator. So coming out of high school, it's possible if you had a couple of business classes or an accounting class, or that was just, you were really interested in that type of work, it's really possible to come out of high school. If you went to a year or two of community college, had some accounting and business classes, it probably gives you one little step up. So that's a possibility. Another, what would be your entry level into the construction business could be as a project engineer. But to do that, you would probably need an engineering degree, and most likely in civil engineering. But you could go to school and then come out of school and then work in the construction business as a project engineer with a civil engineering or maybe mechanical engineering, something along those lines, something where they've showed you how to read plans and know something about weight load and the physical stuff you need to know about. All right, so with that overview of the jobs, here's what our organizational chart looks like. We have 10 or 15 superintendents. We have 5 project managers, 4 project engineers, a couple of project administrators. There's also an estimating department on the right. They're in charge of finding the final, calculating a price for a building based off of plans. So that's a very skilled position. There's no real entry level positions in that area, but that's an area that if you became a project engineer, you could switch over to doing estimating because you know how to read the plans and you know how to talk to subcontractors about what terms they're going to use. And then we have, so that third column is the administrative section. We have accountants on staff that do the actual writing checks and paying bills and tracking our expenses. And we have other things that other businesses would need. We have an advertising department, we have a receptionist, administrative staff. So there's also, if you're interested in construction, but didn't want to build the things and don't know if you want to read plans, there's still some office work that gets you exposed to that. So the reason for the project managers and the project engineers being so relatively small compared to the superintendents is this. A project manager and a project engineer are typically paired together and they work on all their projects together. And they can work on 3 to 4 projects at a time, depending on how big the project is, how long it takes to build. Most of our projects are 6 months is a small one, and 2 years is getting to be medium sized to big. So this is sort of a long-term project for them. So the 2 of them pair up, and a superintendent is on site for the job. He is as a general contractor, he's our representative there. He's in charge of making sure the schedule stays on track. He's in charge of looking down the line and realizing that the plumber should be here in 3 weeks. So he starts calling him and saying, remember, you need to be here on the 17th. And then next week he'll call him again and say, remember, you have to be here in 2 weeks. And they call him 1 week out. He makes very certain that there's communication of what the expectations are. Because if any of the subcontractors don't show up on time, that could stop everything. You can't put your final walls up until your electrical is done. You can't paint until the walls are up. So the painter is going to say, my schedule got missed, and everything falls apart. So superintendent also has a lot of experience in construction, and he could have started as laborer and then moved up from apprentice to journeyman to foreman. He's seen a lot of problems and solutions. I mean, problems are part of the job. You just have to work out what the solution is to that. So superintendents are very experienced, and 1 per site. All right, here's a snapshot of our team. We have Brad and Rob on the left, who are project managers. Dina in the lower right, she's a project engineer. So Rob and Dina could be paired up, and we have different industries that we work with, like government buildings, schools, fire stations, police departments. That tends to have some commonality to it, as to dealing with the bureaucracy of government offices. And then we have other people who deal more with hotels because they're privately owned, and they just have a different contracts, different terms, and different way of working. So generally, a project manager will specialize in some field, and their project engineer will have also had experience in that, so they can work together and very smoothly. Jessica used to be a project engineer, and now she's an estimator. Those are just interchangeable jobs depending on what you like to work on the most, what phase of the project you want to work on, but both PE and estimator can read the plans right down to the last detail, and know exactly what they're asking for and what it takes to put the building up. This is a sample schedule the project manager would make. Beginning of the project, they know that, like say it's a school or even a hotel has to be open May 1st because we want to be open for the summer holiday, vacation season. Or if it's a ski resort type hotel, we want to be open for October 1st so that we can get people by November. Everybody has their schedules. So it has to be planned out from the beginning. And this would show that some things can overlap and run together. Others require a previous step to be done first. So you get a good picture of where you are. And when things slip a little, you can see whether you have the room or don't have the room. And you'll never know you finish on time unless you know you're on time 10% of the way in, 20% of the way in, 30% of the way in. You have to have a map. And this is what project managers use. I mentioned the superintendents earlier about how many there were and the experience level they have. If you notice that David Williams is the only one who does not have gray hair. They are very, very experienced people, and they have a lot of responsibility. It's going to take a while to get to that level, especially for if you're doing remodels on houses or even office buildings. That's a lower level of experience required to be a superintendent on that job. But we're building $10 million and $20 million hotels, fire stations, $5 million, something like that, multi-million-dollar buildings, and with a lot of components to them and a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong. So you need people who really, really, really know what they're doing. And these guys have a lot of experience. Some of the markets that we serve, we have education, built schools from the ground up, or done remodels for universities. We do retail work. Here's the public works, some fire stations, mental health facility. The tower in the middle is one, I believe they set fire to it every couple of weeks, and that's their training building. So it's all brick, other than whatever they burn in it to get the firefighters trained in entering burning buildings. And there's our hotels, some of them. We do office buildings and warehouses. These are probably the easiest because they're just big shells, usually some bay doors, maybe a small office for receiving, or something for the warehouse manager, or whatever that the building is for, maybe a couple of bathrooms, but these are probably the easiest to put up. So back to the opening. Does a general contractor produce a product or provide a service? And it's easy to say, well, it's a product because here's a building. There was nothing here before, and now there's a building, so we've made a building. But what our expertise really comes down to is the service. It's knowing how to do that, who to call, and how to manage the job site, how to manage the project, the budget, and having that expertise to get the building done on time, on budget.